Okay, welcome everyone to today's session. Today we'll be talking about some typical problems of rural areas and the problem of rural development in Nigeria. Our expectation is that after today's session, you should be able to identify and explain the typical problem of rural areas as well as the meaning of rural development. We've highlighted it before, but we'll mention it again today. And then identify and discuss the problems of rural development in Nigeria. Now, even though there are different areas within the rural vicinity that we have, generally, typically, problems that are linked to them differ in the way they rear their heads. However, there are some common problems that can be identified across the various rural areas in our country. We'll be discussing these typical problems that cut across them. All right. Now, one of the typical problems of rural areas is low income and employment. Low income and employment are among the main problems inherent in the rural areas in Nigeria. They emerge in several aspects. One, poor labor force, low labor productivity, low prices of agricultural product. Another typical problem of the rural area is surplus of labor force due to few jobs that are open. Of course, in the rural areas, there are fewer job openings than in the urban areas. Another problem is the problem of unskilled laborers, unskilled workforce. In the rural areas, most new jobs are for unskilled workers, so the wages and the nature of work are unattractive. This is a problem. Workers with high qualification migrate to the city. This is also a problem. There are problems that can be solved by creating new employment opportunities and extra income for the people of the rural areas. However, most of the genuine agencies and people that will solve those problems have moved to the urban areas. Okay. Now, rural areas, they have low labor productivity, like we mentioned earlier. Let's explain what that means. One of the reasons for low income of rural people in rural areas are the low prices of agricultural products. The market forces demand for basic goods grow more slowly than that of luxury goods and services. So the basic agrarian products are cheaper, and because of that, the people eventually have a low income. These are some of the typical problems of rural areas. Sometimes purchasing prices are maintained intentionally low, all right, when there's only one buyer for the agricultural product. Now, to solve this kind of problem, at least partially, many farmers are trying to increase their income by processing raw materials and production of finished goods themselves. They can also form cooperatives to help them get good prices. So that's how they mitigate the problem of low income, which is as a result of low purchasing price. Okay, now there's another group of problems, there's another set of problems in the rural areas, and these problems are associated with poor working and living condition in the rural areas, which is due to underdeveloped infrastructure and public service. The current state of infrastructural facilities in the rural areas, such as roads, water supply, sewage system, electricity, communication network in some cases, is very poor. This situation today, together with low quality of health and education, is the main reason for the migration of the people living in the rural areas to the urban areas. We call it depopulation of the rural areas. Solving this problem is possible through close cooperation with local government authorities, which make efficient use of opportunities provided by local providers like the federal government, NGOs, and even international bodies that are interested in fixing the rural areas. Another problem is economic insecurity. generated by the realization of agricultural production. What do we mean by this? The market economy mechanism increases the role of supply and demand as factors that dictate the prices of agricultural products. The adverse natural conditions are also a factor for inconsistency in people's income. State of the environment further reduces the quality of life in the rural areas in some cases and in some regions. Much of the agricultural lands are polluted with pesticides or by industrial plants, making it difficult to produce quality and healthy products. Suffice me to say that in recent time, insecurity is part of the grinding force forcing economic problems upon the rural dwellers. So, having highlighted this, let's discuss some of the problems of rural development because rural development is supposed to tackle some of this problem. But before we talk about the problem of rural development, let's just roll through the definition of rural development once again. We had defined earlier that rural development can be viewed as the development of the moral, social, political, and economic potentialities of the rural communities to enhance their self-reliance through the provision of appropriate infrastructures such as pipe-borne water, electricity, good roads, and small-scale industries, increasing their political consciousness and participation, which by extension promotes their moral, their social well-being, which will result in the tolerance of others, good discipline of the rural populace, justice, fairness, kindness, love, and peace around the region. Another scholar has defined rural development as the process of making life more satisfying and fulfilling for millions of people who live in the rural area. Now, let's talk about the problems of rural development at this point. One, approaches to rural development in Nigeria have been ad hoc in nature. When we say ad hoc, it's not a defined, organized, strategized rural development plan. It's ad hoc because a government comes in, he implements one, he leaves, he drops it. Another government comes in, he implements another style, he drops it. They need to be a uniform and organized rural development plan. Number two, rural development programs in Nigeria lack the rudiments of long-term planning. Number three, most designs and implementation strategy of rural development projects in Nigeria appeal only to the political needs of the ruling class. You see, what do we mean by that? The politicians are the ones that initiate this program because it helps to showcase their efforts to fix things. And some of these efforts are not naturally a solution in themselves. Now, another problem of rural development is that some of the rural development projects are white elephant projects that do not address the felt needs of the people. Number five, most rural development programs are geared towards agricultural matters only. And we realize from the definition of rural development that rural development should touch the morals, the social, the political, the economic potentialities of the rural communities. And this in turn brings about tolerance, good discipline, justice, fairness, kindness, peace, love. And if we have rural development touching only agricultural aspect, what particular program of rural development will touch discipline? What particular program will touch peace? What particular program will engineer love? So you see, it's a problem that rural development is focused only on agricultural matters. Number six, inadequate extension and research facilities militate against rural development efforts in Nigeria. Of course, we know extension is taking knowledge from where it is domiciled to where it is needed. And if this is the case for rural development, it means that the information being moved is not adequate, or the information being adequate to solve the problem is not moved to where it is needed. There is a level of inadequacy in the research institutes and extension programs. Number seven, some of the rural development projects are planned and implemented without adequate data. Data, they say these days, according to the network providers, data is life. Now, if you collect the right data, you will know the right demography to plan for. If, for example, there are a lot of youth living the rural areas and you are planning to mitigate rural urban migration, it's important that you have the right data such that you can use to plan and target the people you want to affect. Another problem is wrong policy statements that render developmental projects or programs ineffective. And we also have negative attitude of rural dwellers. Of course, we know that our people are not all fun to deal with. Some people have some programs and projects brought to their domain as rural populists to solve problems they highlighted as their problem, and they by themselves shut those problems down with the wrong attitude, with even physically destroying certain things. Then we have corruption and the embezzlement as another problem of rural development. Now, today we've talked about the problem of rural areas. We have as well talked about the meaning of rural development, and we've highlighted the problems of rural development in Nigeria. Thank you for listening as I look forward to seeing you in my next class.